Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Post Race Monday Night Edition. Joe Samaniego, Kobe Lambeth from the podium finish. The NASCAR Geico 500 at Talladega is now in the books. This weekend, though, will be remembered for a long time and will be for more than just what happened at the race today. As most of you are aware, Sunday evening, after the race was called off, crew members from Richard Petty Motorsports discovered a noose had been placed in the garage assigned to the team car driven by Bubba Wallace. The team reported it to NASCAR, and NASCAR officials took immediate action. Following that, NASCAR made an announcement late Sunday evening and stated that they were going to investigate the situation that had occurred in the garage area. They were stated they were angry and outraged by this heinous act of racism. They will investigate it and eliminate the person or people involved in this racist threat. Now, Bubba Wallace never saw the news since the drivers are not allowed in the garage area. That's what makes it a bit more of a troubling issue, not only because of this taking place, but because only NASCAR personnel, such as officials, team crew members, safety team, and track officials have access to the garage area. Now, late last night, NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace did issue a statement on how this was a painful and sad reminder of how much further we have to go to eliminate racism. That night, several drivers such as Tyler Reddick, Brandon Poole, Michael Modell all tweeted their support for Bubba Wallace. The next morning, NASCAR had the FBI on the track to conduct the investigation and plans to file charges against the culprit. Talladega Superspeedway is property of NASCAR, owned and operated by the NASCAR folks after they bought ISC. And it was reported that there was no incidents with fans trying to enter the speedway with any paraphernalia, whether it was the Confederate flag or any clothing that had that Confederate flag on it. Now, Monday, prior to the race, NASCAR Steve Phelps did address, again, the media, again reiterating a lifetime ban will be handed down to the culprit no matter who it is. I know after Atlanta, there was a lot of talk after Steve Phelps' speech in Atlanta Motor Speedway on how serious NASCAR was going to be in addressing racism and being more open and welcoming. We saw them recognize the LGBTQ community. They banned the Confederate flag. And now essentially a hate crime has taken place on NASCAR grounds at their track Talladega. Is this NASCAR's biggest test since Atlanta?
Yes, and Joe, for some reason, I've been having some weird feelings today about this whole situation. Like deep down, I feel like that this is truly the beginning of a culture change in NASCAR. What you see in the NFL at the end of NFL, NBA, other sport leagues at the end of the season. Sometimes when the current coaching staff and current group of players have been there for a while, it just doesn't work out one over a period of time, and then they do something called cleaning house, and with NASCAR banning the Confederate flag, taking a stance against racism, and seeing how seriously they're handling this news incident directed towards Bubba Wallace. I think NASCAR has definitely made it very clear where they stand right now. NASCAR wants to be more diverse and include a lot of other people from different ethnic backgrounds, and I definitely think that NASCAR is passing the test so far, and I just want them to keep the momentum going, keep the right foot down on the throttle, because I think in 10 to 15 years from now, we're going to remember this Talladega race weekend has been a crucial turning point in NASCAR's history, as obviously NASCAR is not going to escape their past. When racism was like at a really high volumes, and it seems like NASCAR is really turning the page now. And well, you're not going to erase your history and all that, but you can definitely change it. And I think NASCAR is definitely changing for the better.
Indeed, it does seem like it's turning for the better, and this is something where we're all going to remember this weekend, because one of the things I feel, especially this is such a big test for NASCAR, and I do agree with you. they are handling this. They came out saying this happened. They didn't just try to solve it internally. They came out saying this happened. We're going to take action and we're going to ban the person, no matter who it is. Lifetime ban from all NASCAR events and grounds. And one of the things I think that makes this even more serious, of course, not only is it somebody within the industry that done this, Steve Phelps has said the likelihood of a fan being able to sneak in is very, very low. But essentially, compared to this was a clear threat. This was just a threat against a driver. And some people are concerned about Bubba Wallace's safety as well, on the track, off the track. And this is something where I felt NASCAR has done a really made it clear that we're not going to take this at all. This has no place in our sport. No way whatsoever. Now, Sunday morning, drivers, as they were waking up and were being exposed to what had happened late Saturday, they started tweeting and sharing their message of support for Bubba Wallace using the hashtag #IStandWithBubba. Along with racing organizations such as NASCAR, we saw Indianapolis Motor Speedway even, the NFL tweeted that they stand with NASCAR, Bubba Wallace, celebrities like LeBron James, Alvin Kamara, and many more. This led to a very emotional and powerful message prior to the race. All the teams, the drivers, followed by their pit crews, got together. Bubba sat in his car, which was lined up. All the cars were lined up single file on pit road. And together, they all pushed Bubba's car to the front of the pack. Once they all got to the front, Bubba was overwhelmed with emotion. Richard Petty gave him a hug. One of his best friends, Ryan Blaney, came in, gave him a hug. And it was just one of those things where it was really emotional, powerful moment seeing all the drivers hugging a fellow racer who was targeted of a racist threat. It was a really powerful moment. Seeing everybody, they all rallied behind him, stood together with him. How powerful was that message sent by NASCAR today to the world and to the culprit?
Well, I definitely think that this is definitely one of the most powerful moments. This might end up being one of the most powerful moments in NASCAR history because when I was watching it happen, I was just speechless. You know, I had goosebumps and chills and all that. It was just like wow, like this is such a powerful moment, and I'm very fortunate that I'm here to you know, here from a distance, but you know, being able to witness that moment with Bubba Wallace sitting in the car and having Richard Petty there and all of the other competitors in the Cup Series and all the crew members out there as well, you know, in unison supporting Bubba Wallace, showing that they will not stand for racism and bigotry, and whoever the person was that hung the noose in the garage stall, they definitely have a lot. They're definitely outnumbered by a lot. There's a lot more people that will fight for Bubba Wallace than there are against him. And and as you saw, Bubba Wallace was very emotional, seeing all the love and support, and I'm sure that this is a day that he'll never forget, and everybody who witnessed that powerful moment will never forget either. It was definitely one of those wonderful feel good sports moments that you'll be telling your grandkids about in years to come.
It was a very powerful sports moment, as you mentioned. There always seems to be moments in sports that define a season, a team, or just a legacy of a sport going forward. I know for me, I could remember some powerful moments at Talladega, especially at the first race at Talladega after Davey Allison passed away. A lot of people were sad losing a home state hero, but for the true race fans, and the true race fans are the ones that are still vested in NASCAR, vested in racing, are totally on board with NASCAR's message of no racism at the racetrack, making our country better. The true race fans that are still with us, I feel this was a very powerful moment. And for sure, for me, this was one of the most powerful moments that I'll be telling people about. Like, this is the moment we all rally behind the sport. Atlanta was the start of the movement. this was sort of the rallying call, like we are not going to back down. We are going to stand, and we're going to make sure NASCAR is not going to waver on racism. And that was reassuring to me that we have a sport that welcomes everyone.
Definitely. I think we're definitely gonna look back at this moment as a turning point in the sports history, a day that everyone will never forget. And as you know, the people the people. Well, I don't know if I want to call them people. I call out the people who have closed-minded views of racist, bigots, whatever you want to call them. I th- I think they feel like they've been backed into a corner right now, and and you know their beliefs they're in the minority right now, and all of the people who are standing up for Bubba Wallace and people of color everywhere, they're definitely breathing down their neck, and and the reason why they're reacting so hostily because they don't want to give up, because those individuals, NASCAR have been their safe spot for years, and now NASCAR is telling them that they're no longer welcome at all with their closed-minded views, and it's definitely great to see that NASCAR is moving away from those people. NASCAR is for everyone. NASCAR is a family sport, and NASCAR is definitely going to welcome all moving forward, except for racist people. And this race was definitely a great welcoming event for any new fans that may not have seen the Talladega before. The Talladega Super Speedway is known for the crazy close pack of cars. Yeah, in the first stage, overall it was pretty calm. You had the stage caution and then a yellow for weather. I thought we were going to be done for and have to come back Tuesday, but so but very surprisingly, we got the whole show in, and when looking at the aero package, were you surprised that we didn't see the top lane runaway like we've seen in the past opening stages?
You bring up a good point about that top lane. I thought we've seen quite often the top lane could just, once they were single file, they were really hard to beat because they have so much momentum up there. I think a little bit may have been a little bit about that slipper tape that they put in the back bumpers. With that slip tape, they couldn't get locked in, but we saw that eventually wear out. Overall, it seemed like with this package, the tandem wasn't as strong as it used to be, at least early on. We didn't see the single file. We did see pack racing, and I feel like, especially as you mentioned, that first stage did seem pretty tame, but it wasn't a single file train. It was pretty good racing throughout the first stage.
Yeah, and I believe I saw a quote after the race from a driver. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Eric Almirola, and I think he said that that the changes to the super speedway package, with less horsepower and no air ducts, made the cars bunch up, so they couldn't run single file on the top. So it's definitely interesting that the changes to the aero package may be the reason why you didn't see the single file train, and and the rain, and with the rain delay, but the weather moved on, and we had green flag racing again. We talked about Team Penske being good. Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney all had wins and were in the top three, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was up in the front, being very aggressive as normal. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is always goes big and goes bold, and he's definitely not afraid to make a move on the super speedways. Were you surprised to see the 47 car up there, considering like how strong it was, and when he fell back in the pack, he got back to the front really well. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really seems to love these super speedway tracks, right?
He definitely does seem to enjoy the super speedway track, and it was honestly a bit of a surprise for me, just because we all know when he was with Roush Fenway the last few years, he got a win in Talladega, first time win, Daytona. It seems he either wins or he wrecks, like what happened the following 400-mile race at Daytona. Daytona 500, he looked pretty good. He was involved in some problems, didn't get the finish he wanted. Today, he was very aggressive. A couple times I thought, oh, something's going to happen. He pushed somebody a little too hard. But towards the end, just seeing him still there, this has to be a really big morale boost for that 47 team. Of course, the first race back after the pandemic shutdown, he goes out on the first lap. He had a couple good races, but then a hard crash in Bristol. So for him to rebound, run strong, I think it's a big confidence boost for him and the team.
Yeah, yeah, and in the stage two, the action really heated up and got very intense between Ryan Blaney and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And at the line, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. took stage two. Yeah, in stage two, we saw some intense racing as people anticipated the big one. What was this? Was this the Talladega race fans anticipated? And what do you think of of the slip tape?
Definitely, I think the slip tape, it was something where I recall Jeff Gordon said something like it might work for like the first 10 laps. We saw later on video of Bubba Wallace bumper looked like the slip tape was essentially gone. So it didn't seem like it made that big of a difference. We definitely had a typical, I would say, Talladega race. I know a lot of fans, when they think of the restrictor plates, they think of the big packs. And of course, the big packs has been a characteristic of Daytona Talladega since the restrictor plates introduced in the late 80s, early 90s. Then we started seeing some of the years of tandem drafting, especially with the car tomorrow, where the bumpers were even and how they could just, two cars could pull away from everybody. We didn't see a whole lot of that. We didn't see that high line single file just take over and become a follow the leader type. So I would say this was definitely something where it was a little bit more of a typical Talladega race, something the fans were anticipating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely thought that it was a pretty decent race today at Talladega Super Speedway. It definitely reminded me of some of the restrictor plate races from the early to mid 2000s. You know, when you saw a lot of tight action all throughout the pack. But I will say, I was pleasantly surprised that we saw no big one today because those drivers got really sideways and restrictor plate racing in general is one of those kinds of racing that really makes you sit on the edge of your seat and your blood is boiling, heart's pumping, all of that, and it's just like one wrong you're just waiting for one driver to mess up and one wrong move, and that was definitely one of these days today. Restrictor plate racing definitely makes me really nervous, but I do enjoy the overall product that we see at places like Daytona and Talladega.
It was a good product, and as stage two, as you mentioned, was coming to a close, the intensity was starting to pick up, and then we definitely saw stage three. That is where, as Larry McReynolds DW would say, business picked up. A lot of hard racing, a lot of bumping. One of the things you mentioned, some of the pushing and cars getting sideways. It was really interesting. At one point, Ryan Blaney saved the race, way sideways, entering the tri-oval. I thought he was going to lose it. He somehow saves it, and then he gets on the radio and tells essentially to Brad Keselowski's team, hey, I had control of that. Keep pushing me. It definitely seemed like something where that spoiler, which it was essentially pretty small spoiler, but they did have a larger, clear Lexipan see-through spoiler, so that way it did have a bigger effect. It seemed to keep the car straight, which was really interesting to see that. Now, as everything was picking up, we saw essentially the low lane, middle lanes, they were the strong lanes throughout the race. The top lane wasn't much of a factor at all. And then in the third stage, become a non-factor for the race win was Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth. Kenseth had something broke, fell off the pace in the backstretch, and Kyle Busch, a flat tire, no yellow flag. The yellow flag did eventually come out for Joey Gates and Brandon Poole incident in turn three. Now, during a restart, we did have a moment where Christopher Bell and the 95 tried to move down, joined up with Eric Jones, his teammate. That didn't work out, whereas Penske been doing that with these two, the Gibbs alliance, didn't work out. They essentially made pretty good, significant contact. Jones went below the yellow line. He was pushed down there because of Bell's mistake, and Bell gets a penalty for pushing a driver below the yellow line. Did you agree with that penalty?
Oh yes, definitely. If NASCAR states a rule on the rule in the rule book, then I expect it to be followed, and that's exactly what they did here today by penalizing Christopher Bell and bringing down pit road to serve the penalty, and I think today is definitely going to be one of those days where Christopher Bell had one of those typical rookie days. Yes, some days gonna be like sunshines and daisies, and some days are just gonna be downright disappointing. And I'm sure Christopher Bell is probably wondering what could have been today. And in the past few weeks, it seems like Christopher Bell has finally started to get a full understanding of the Cup cars because during the early portions of the season, it seemed like Bell was really struggling to find his footing in the Cup Series. But as time as goes on, getting more race under his belt, it definitely seems like he's getting more comfortable behind the wheel.
Definitely, he seems he's getting more comfortable behind the wheel, become a little bit of a factor and a little bit of a surprise today when he was up there running pretty well. Another surprise I think everyone's talking about as well, Chase Elliott today. He was in the grid ranking top 10 entering the weekend, but trouble in the backstretch. He spun, made contact with the outside wall and Austin Dillon, taking essentially both of them out of the race. Chase at all didn't seem like a factor compared to last year, where he was always towards the front contending for the win. Considering it's Talladega, why wasn't Chase much of a front runner today?
I mean, you're not. I mean, you might be a good super speedway racer, but every super speedway race is not going to go your way. And I think today was just one of those days for Chase Elliott. What like, Chase Elliott's been a front runner at a lot of the super speedways, and he got up there for a little while today, but not like it has been in previous super speedway races. But today was just one of those days where you take your losses, sleep on it tonight, and come back tomorrow and start preparing for Pocono.
Pocono will be the next race weekend. Definitely, even though it is a super speedway, still, if it's not your day, you're just not up there. You can still put something together, try to get towards the front. But for Chase today, it was just not happening. We get down to about 26 laps ago, and this was, I think, a big moment. A lot of folks watching, a lot of the fans that were in the stand, the 5,000 that made it to the race. Bubba Wallace takes the lead. You know he was a sentimental favorite today. He was looking really good in the 43 car, which had Adam Petty's Victory Junction Gang colors on it. He was also looking good with 15 to go with the stage. And stage one winner, Tyler Reddick was up front too. So essentially 2 cars from the RCR Alliance were running pretty well. And Tyler Reddick, of course, he's been doing well quite a lot this year. How impressed are you with the rookies, essentially leading this late, Tyler Reddick, this late in a super speedway track?
To be honest, when it comes to Tyler Reddick, I think we are witnessing NASCAR's next superstar, Tyler Reddick. He has what I call the it factor. Tyler Reddick just has the talent to will a race car and to get the absolute most out of it. And I think once Tyler Reddick gets some more Cup races under his belt, the experience. I definitely think that Tyler Reddick is gonna take RCR back to places where they haven't gone in a long time.
Now, at this point, Tyler Reddick being up front, of course, being a rookie, he was looking really good, but he did have one issue, fuel mileage. Him, Bubba Wallace, quite a lot of cars running up front that late were getting really low on fuel mileage. For our new fans, especially, now that new fans are coming in to watch NASCAR, how important, well, I guess more, how does fuel mileage become an issue this late in the race? And how does a driver save fuel while they're going 200 miles per hour at a racetrack?
Joe, I have no idea, and that's probably why I'm sitting here with you right now because those guys are true professionals and they know exactly what they're doing. I know it definitely don't compare to the real thing, obviously, but when I've been playing NASCAR Heat trying to save fuel, even I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like and if I was like in a real car, I still have no idea like how I'd save fuel while running a big pack at 200 miles per hour. But kudos to those drivers for being as skilled as they are, and they're definitely and they made it to the NASCAR Cup Series for a reason.
Definitely is something, a skill that those drivers have. They've mastered it during the years of Xfinity or the trucks. It is just something where with those early pit stops, fuel was just not going to be a good way to make it all the way to the end. And then, of course, trying to save fuel, they were talking about how, okay, If you have some caution laps, you could easily save fuel. Well, they didn't have that. How do you save fuel if you're up front? As they had asked about Bubba Wallace when he was leading a pack of cars. Well, it's not really something that easy, as Jeff Gordon says. So it's definitely something where it is very tricky for the drivers at any level to save fuel, and especially at Talladega, where unlike Atlanta, other tracks where they could coast in the corner, let off the gas, here it's full throttle all the way. They could try to use a little bit of the draft, but it's just way too hard, and it's just something that those drivers earn their money to do. 10 to go. We still saw Tyler Reddick ahead with the 11 and the 22. And what was really interesting, Tyler was moving up and down, blocking each lane as it was approaching, something you call the it factor. He really demonstrated that skill where I felt most rookies would just stay in one lane and either the high line or the low line would still get side by side with them. The big shakeup, though, was with about 4 laps to go. Blaney and Stenhouse returned from the back towards the front using that higher lane. They got around Reddick and the others. These drivers had been saving fuel, and they were working their way to the front. But then the caution came out with essentially Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson made contact exiting the tri-oval. What can you tell us about the contact between Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick, especially this late in the race?
I think I think that's what I'm gonna call just typical Talladega in the closing laps of the race. And you know the closer you get to the checkered flag with the laps winding down, there's gonna be contact, and sometimes there's gonna be crashes, and sometimes the big one. But I just think that what we saw between Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson was just an unfortunate circumstance of coming towards the end of a super speedway race at Talladega, and it was once again Jimmy Johnson was close to potentially winning a race, and it all went south.
Definitely went south. He didn't get too much significant damage, mostly just spin, didn't make contact. But of course, flat tires, he had to make a pit stop. As well as making a pit stop, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and many that were pretty much by this point running on fumes towards the end because we entered overtime for today's race at Talladega. And in fact, even as we were coming to the green flag to start the overtime, Custer, Newman, both of them on the inside lane dove into pit road short on gas. Now, this last lap was something else. We saw essentially a lead change on the last lap, and this is sort of becoming typical Talladega. We have extreme blocking where essentially nobody's having momentum unless they're still getting pushed since everyone's blocking. Clint Boyer and several others get collected in a crash entering turn 3. NASCAR said they were far back enough so they allow everyone to keep racing to the finish. And then at the line, we essentially saw Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Almirola all crashing across the finish line. Almirola got third place, rear bumper crossing the finish line first. How was this finish at Talladega? And how does it rank up there?
Oh, it was a spectacular finish at Talladega. Definitely going to be one of the probably end up being one of the all time most spectacular finishes at the track. It was definitely crazy because at one point when I was watching it live, it looks like John Hunter Nemechek in that 38 car had a run. When they were coming through the trial, I was like, oh gosh, John Hunter Nemechek's gonna steal this one, and then I saw Blaney block, and then you know Eric Jones and Nemechek got together, and Almirola went spinning across the line, and he ended up finishing third sideways, which is pretty crazy. And I just think overall, today's race it was just phenomenal racing all throughout from flag to flag, and hopefully all the fans enjoyed, especially the fans who were able to be at the track. You know, I think it was like 5,000 of them, I believe, and you know, and then at the end, you know, hearing their cheers, it after you know racing behind closed doors, it felt really weird to you know hear fans cheering again at a live sporting event.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was a little bit of technical difficulty here, but it was definitely something where it was one of those finishers that will definitely rank up there. I know thinking about 2000 Winston 500 when Dale Earnhardt Sr. won that race, you had some cars crashing across the finish line towards the back of the pack. Dale Jr.'s first win there, that was something very memorable as well. So definitely this was, I think, one of my it's going to be a very memorable finish, especially considering the weekend, everything around it, a good finish. And as you pointed out, too, hearing the fans cheer, they were cheering Ryan Blaney as he was doing his victory interview. Bubba Wallace went up there, thanked the fans for coming out. The fans were there cheering him and Jamie Little. That was really something very special.
Oh yeah, it was definitely special at the very end. I know Ryan Blaney won the race, but I think it's safe to say that Bubba Wallace stole the show in the beginning and at the end. Yeah, Bubba Wallace climbed out of his car and then he started walking through the front stretch grass, into the trioval where he was greeted on the at the fence with a lot of with a lot of fans, cheering for him and I noticed that it was a lot of people of color there, and I noticed the shirt Black Lives Matter, and it shows you how far NASCAR has come in just a few short months. Who would have thought at the beginning of 2020 that we would have seen Black Lives Matter shirts at a NASCAR race, and it really touched my heart. Seeing those little black kids at the race as well, me being a person, being a person of color, it just really meant a lot. And I also spoke to some other people as well in the industry, and they told me that they were crying when they saw those little kids along the fence cheering on Bubba because it makes everybody think of well people yeah us. It makes us feel like the times when we were watching NASCAR as a kid. It was love at first sight. So it's definitely a special moment. And now we're gonna look at the top 10 finishers from the race. Obviously, Ryan Blaney won. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finished a close second. Eric Almirola was Almirola sideways in third. Denny Hamlin fourth. Eric Jones rounded out the top five. Then you had Chris Buescher, who had a strong round, finishing sixth. Alex Bowman seventh. John Hunter Nemechek, who had a huge run coming to the checker flag, finished eighth. Kurt Busch finished ninth, and Kevin Harvick rounds out the top 10. And here's the updated grid ranking top 10. The biggest changes: Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski dropped out of the top 10. Ryan Blaney moves into the top 10, and Chaz Mostert from the Australian Supercar Series is in the top 10 now. Yeah, and on Wednesday night, make sure you join us for Grid Tonight. We will cover the latest from NASCAR regarding the news left in Bubba Wallace garage stall, preview the Supercar Series return, and more. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish.
And I'm Joe Samriego. We leave you tonight with a message to all race fans and everyone in the racing community. Racing is a sport that is universal and welcoming to everyone. All race fans serve as a welcoming community for new fans to get emotionally invested in our sport and grow their passion. We all play a role in the health of our sport. As I mentioned at the end of Grid Tonight on April, following the incident with Kyle Larson, the race car driver is a role model and can influence fans with their actions, intentionally or unintentionally. The culprit behind the hateful threat against Bubba Wallace Sunday is not someone truly vested in the sport, but in their exclusive views of others and use racing as a way to be exclusive for them. Today, NASCAR made it clear that person is not part of NASCAR or the sport and will be banned for life once they're found out and discovered. For anyone thinking NASCAR or any racing series will welcome a selfish, hateful person is dead wrong. There is no place in the racing industry for such a selfish person, and you will not be part of the sport moving forward. And we, at the grid, stand with NASCAR, Bubba Wallace, and everyone in the racing community standing against racism. Thank you.